My name is Greg Taylor.
And I'm Deb Taylor.
And the first time we met Lola was in October 2013 on a mission trip with First United Methodist Church.
My daughter Abby and I had the opportunity to go to Nicaragua with the Liebargers. And I had been to Nicaragua before in 2008 with our church. And so Janet asked me before we left, she's like, is there any place you want to go back to? And I said, I don't care where we go, I don't care what we do, but I want to go back to the special needs orphanage. And I couldn't really tell you why. It was just such an impactful experience that I wanted to go back there. And so that was one of the first things that we did on our trip, was to go to the orphanage. And if you don't know anything about it, there's about 30 kids there with special needs. And I kind of describe it as 15 of them have severe physical disabilities and they're in wheelchairs. And then about the other 15 have, you can look at them and see that there's some mental difficulties, either Down syndrome or just other difficulties. And so there was this little girl there that just caught our eye. She physically, you could tell there was nothing wrong with her. She was climbing all over everything. She was playing with everything. And you could tell, Abby and Robbie were both playing with her, and you could tell she was understanding what we were saying. There was, she wasn't verbally interacting with them, but you could see that she was definitely interacting with them and knew what they were saying. We happened to go there on a Monday, and the Liebargers typically go on Sundays, and on Monday there was an intern there. He was a US speaking, he spoke English, intern, and so we asked him, we're like, why is she there? Because she didn't really seem to fit in, and he was able to answer us and basically said that she was there because she was there with a cousin. And her cousin who was there, Pablo, had some severe physical disabilities. Like Abby and I went on this experience, and we came home and we told Greg, we're like, we went to this orphanage for kids with special needs, and his response was, I'm surprised you didn't bring one home with you. And Abby and I were immediately like, about that, yeah. You know, like how, and so, and the thing was, like, when we mentioned it to Emma and Greg, like, there was no hesitation. There was like, of course we'll do this, if it's possible.
And so we started very slowly to see if it was even possible, to see, you know, because to identify a specific child that you feel was placed in front of you for a reason, for adoption, and then to actually adopt that specific child, it's hard to do, and we weren't sure it was even possible. So we started the process of researching adoption laws, researching contacting lawyers in Nicaragua. And it took probably 6 months until we got all of our paperwork together, got it filed in Nicaragua, multiple meetings with a lawyer. And all this time we're doing multiple trips down there, meeting Lola. And so then at some point, once you do become emotionally invested in it, at that point we were looking at this is our daughter. But pretty soon you figure out what you come to conclusion, this is our daughter. And so then you've got to see it through, and you've got to make sure it does go all the way to conclusion.
And the amazing thing is that she was literally born 7 hours away from there. So for her to have gotten to that orphanage where she was, we don't quite understand all the details, but it doesn't matter. We think God was in the details.
All right, so the first time I met her was in February of 14. They had met her in October of 13. And by that time, by February 14, we're pretty committed to this, and we know this because this is our daughter. So we go down there and go to the orphanage, and yeah, and I've shared before that when I walked into that she slept in a room of cribs, and there's probably 20 cribs in this room. And so when I walked in there, and the first time I saw her, I realized, yeah, that is my daughter. I knew the moment I saw her that, okay, this is my daughter.
Again, Greg doesn't like to travel, he doesn't like to fly, and so when we went down to Nicaragua, we didn't stay at a missionary house. We stayed at like the nicest hotel you could stay at in Nicaragua. I mean, it really was. And so you had to use your room key to get the elevator to go. And we had stayed there for 3 or 4 days, had never had any trouble with it. It worked every single time. And so the very last night that we were there, we get in the elevator and we put our room key in, and it doesn't work. and we put it in again, tried several times, couldn't get it to work. And so in comes in the elevator a well-dressed
it's an American couple.
Yeah, you could tell they were from the United States. And we asked, her card's not working, will you help us out? And so they put their key in, and we all got where we were supposed to be going and went our separate ways. And so the next morning we're at the airport, and I was an emotional wreck because here I am, I knew I had my daughter. I knew the other part that we learned throughout this process is that when you adopt from Nicaragua, you have to stay there for 3 months, or 2 to 5 months was what we'd heard. We had no idea how we were going to do that.
Right. So
we knew we had to because that was a part of the process, but we had no idea how we were going to do that. And so we're walking around the airport, committed to this adoption, committed to this bringing our daughter home. And Greg wanted a Coke before we got on the flight to go home, and so we get in line. There's a couple different places, and he sees that there's this couple, the same couple that we had seen the night before, was standing right in front of us in line. And being in Nicaragua enough, you know that if you see somebody from the United States, they're doing mission work, they're doing, they're there for a reason. And again, he kind of said,
well, I said
God,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I saw him there, I said, "Well, hey, thanks for helping us out in the refrigerator." Did I say refrigerator?
Yeah, you did.
But in the refrigerator. When I saw him, I said, "Thanks for helping us out in the elevator last night." And of course, we struck up a conversation. We asked them what they're doing there. They asked us what we're doing there, and we said, "Well, we're in the process of adopting a child." And we got to speaking, and we shared with them, "Well, we've got to stay here for 3 months. We don't know how we're going to do this, but somehow we're going to make this happen." And it turns out that they're good friends with the American couple that lives in Nicaragua, and their whole ministry is to help adopting parents move to Nicaragua for 3 months during the adoption process. And so right there was our answer, which without doubt, God put this couple in the elevator, and God obviously made our key not work so we can meet this couple the next day in the airport, and they shared with us the name of, there's a ministry down there called FIT, Families in Transition. It's run by an American couple, because you have to stay there 3 months. There's, when you go down, they had a house set aside so you could stay in their house during the adoption process. And this guy was good friends with them, put us in touch with them, which was a big answer to how this was going to work. And so without that contact, maybe we would have eventually found this American missionary team down there. But I don't know, but certainly there's a reason why our key didn't work in the elevator that day, and there's a reason why that gentleman was in front of us at the airport. They gave us that first very important contact. And all throughout the process, that happened numerous times where God put people in front of us to help us through the adoption process. There's countless obstacles you have to overcome, and there's always somebody there to help us through that. From the people we met from the speech therapist. Amazingly, we found a speech therapist and near the orphanage that speaks English. We were able to get Lola speech therapy. We paid for the speech therapy while we were here, and she was down there during that year of adoption process because she was nonverbal. She couldn't speak English or Spanish, and so she started speech therapy. And so Maribel, who's become our very good friend, was there to help us not only tutor Lola but watch over her, because now we're 2,000 miles away with our daughter down there, and now we had a direct contact with somebody who worked at the orphanage that could help tutor Lola. All right, so you're down there for 3 months, and she's down there for 3 months. I made multiple trips back and forth. Abigail made multiple trips back and forth, and so did Emma. And so that was obviously a big strain in the family because she's down there for 3 months, and I'm here working and taking the kids to school and doing everything that's required at home. So it's stressful for me, but more so for her because she's in a foreign country, right. Living by herself in an apartment that the Willards help us set up. Part of the ministry is they had a house you could stay out. They also had apartments, so we stayed in one of the apartments, and so they helped us set that up. But she's living down there with Lola. At that point, you have the child. Lola was with us, and so that was great. But you're also by yourself in a strange country, no car, no transportation. Depending on, we had a great friend down there by name Daniel, which many people here have met, that was able to drive Deb to the groceries and the store and to the mall when necessary. But
again, that was one of those things where God provided, because one of Greg's biggest worries was me being stranded and not being able to get where I needed to go. And
again, it's not about us, it's about Lola. So what's God's plan for Lola. So he did all this for her, not for us, obviously. He did all this for her, and why were we selected by him on that specific day to bring her here, to adopt her and give her the opportunities. Obviously, she's going to have more opportunities in the United States. She's just going to have an orphanage in Nicaragua. And so I have no doubt that there are amazing plans for her that we obviously don't know what they are. Yeah, but there are going to be some amazing plans for Lola, and she's going to do amazing things. I just feel that for everything he's done up to her for this point.
Mm-hmm.
But here back in the U.S., what was a major milestone of
Oh
development?
my gosh, there's so many, because like last summer she couldn't count. Like she could not count to 10 to save her life, or to and she can count to like 20 something now. 1-to-1 correspond, like the right way she can count to 20. Learning to read. She's learning to. I mean, we didn't know if she'd ever be able to read, to be honest. So she's learning to read.
I think that's pretty significant. Is once once we saw that she has, we always know she has amazing capability, but when you actually see it and she picks up a book and she's reading, I can jump, I can run. She's reading those simple, basic Dick and Jane books we all start with. That was pretty significant, and that's happened in the last month that she's developed and finally got to the point. She's still probably a year and a half behind her other peers, but she's making it there. She's catching up, and she does every sign that she's going to catch up to him.
One of the things that's always stood out with me is the relationships and how it is all interconnected, and how, like he said, if Jim Wilson didn't say yes to what God was asking him to do, then we never would have had that opportunity. If the Liebargers didn't have their relationship with Nicaragua, we wouldn't have. And so, like, not to.
And from that, for even when we got down there, the whole network of people that came together for us to do, that God had to bring together for us to do the adoption. It wasn't just us, by far it wasn't just us. It was a whole group of people that made it happen through his will to bring her to the U.S. And so that's something to think about, that if you have a dream, you may not have what you need by yourself, but he'll put people out there to help you, and he'll put people out there to help you follow your dreams and fulfill it. And a lot of times they're as important as your own self and your own inward self is everybody that he's going to put in your path. God put in front of us what we needed to have in order to accomplish it, and we're stepping outside our comfort zone, doing things that we didn't know we were able to do, that we could do. For me, not like flying, to her living down there for 3 months by herself. He put the people and the things in place in order to make it happen. And going forward, it's if you reach for something, if you dream for something, don't be afraid to follow it. Don't be afraid to go after that dream, because if it's his will and it's what you want, and obviously he's going to give you the tools to do it. In this case, he gave us all the tools we needed in order to adopt Lola and bring her to USA and give her the opportunities that God has set up for her, whatever those are.
What were you gonna say?
Where were you?
Nicaragua.
No. Where are you now?
Ohio.
That's perfect, actually.